So let us begin with today's perspectives. First one is about clearing the air. As we know, recently new drone rules have been draft rules have been released. So the new drone rules create economic possibilities, the potential as we discussed earlier, but we should be mindful of the security as well as privacy concerns which are involved with this. So that is the caution you must have along with taking on board the economic possibilities. See, drones are today. If you see, drones are finding their way into application in agriculture. We can see drones in agriculture. We can see it in e-commerce for delivery. In agriculture, drones can be used in form of sprinkling the fertilizers, pesticides, monitoring the crops, harvest. Such things, drones can be used in agriculture. In e-commerce, as you know, for door-to-door delivery, e-commerce can be used. And for road construction also. Which involves large scale monitoring, also seeing road construction, mining activities, supply chain management to manage the supply chain, telecom and railways, so are employing drones currently. So new rules will allow the industry to explore new opportunities without having to worry about the regulatory overhang. So regulation has been relaxed in line with reducing the bureaucratic hurdles, etc. So this has a platform, digital sky platform, which will be key to ensuring that there are no bureaucratic hurdles. The platform promises a single window online system. So since the digital skies platform, it promises a single window online system, so no, it ensures that there's no bureaucratic hurdles. So under the new rules, this platform will provide an interactive map of operations, segregating the entire airspace of India into red, yellow, and green zones. So it will try to segregate Indian airspace into red, yellow, and green zones. And then there are some negative consequences that come with the proliferation of drone technology. So one such area is the protection of citizens' privacy. So this is one of the negative consequences which comes up with the use of any such new technology, proliferation of new technology. So it is about citizens' privacy. As we know, privacy is a fundamental right. But to ensure that fundamental right, we need to have strong data protection laws in place, which is absent. So as you've seen in the times of COVID, the Mumbai police have used drones to observe the lockdown violations in residential areas such as Andheri and Dharavi. So it has been similarly used by other states also, such as Kerala. So this could be misused for widespread and indiscriminate data collecting and processing without any oversight. So this could amount to the violation of right to privacy. For example, when you talk about France's highest administration court recently ruled that Paris authorities could no longer use aerial drones to track people violating the social distancing rules in the corona fight, and after groups have warned of a threat to personal privacy. So this was France's highest administration's ruling recently. Then after that, the preventive steps must be taken to ensure that drones do not turn into a weapon in the hands of extremists and non-state actors. So this we must always keep in mind that preventive steps must be taken to ensure that drones do not turn into a weapon in the hands of extremists and non-state actors. There is a need to strike a balance between enabling the drone sector to grow and the concerns surrounding the privacy and the security. So this is the overall perspective about drone. That how drone can act as enabler to the economy, providing new opportunities. At the same time, poses challenges in terms of security and privacy. At the same time, there are security threats also involved in terms of, as you've seen in the airport attack. So, and must ensure that drones do not turn into weapons, because there are two sides of everything, so that it don't reach the hands of extremists and non-state actors. So, moving forward, this is about the facial recognition technology. Again, one more article highlighting concerns about the facial recognition technology. Again, in the same light of having security and privacy concerns. So there is an urgent need for a comprehensive law defining the fair use of facial recognition technology, so that transgressors can be held accountable. The same point, but the evolution of the tools of surveillance and their gradual incursion into public space are leading to growing concerns about the privacy. So again, because of increasing state surveillance, there is threat of privacy, concern about privacy. The number of state-owned agencies they are now employing this facial recognition technology with CCTV cameras to identify citizens on a real-time basis. So FRT linked to close circuit cameras to identify citizens on real-time basis. Now earlier we discussed why it is important. We can find the missing persons, we can identify criminals, we can track them, we can track persons of interest. and all such things on real-time basis, purportedly to track criminals. As you saw, it will aid law enforcement agencies and it will also facilitate business. So, Airports Authority of India, etc., some of the organizations, state-owned agencies which are using it. But the profusion of facial recognition technology in a country like ours is yet to, which is yet to have the data protection law in place. And this is more so because we have a threefold increase in the cybercrime. So this now merits some amount of introspection, because having such a technology at a time when cyber crimes are increasing without data protection laws in place, you can put citizens right of privacy data concerns. The Personal Data Protection Bill is yet to be passed by Parliament. The Information Technology Act 2000 is no longer adequate to address the new challenges that have arisen out of the state of art technology. So IT Act 2000 also needs to be amended to keep progress with time. So the lack of proper regulation to control the collection, storage, and utilization of FRT data is problematic for several reasons. So why the lack of proper regulation, collection, storage of data is problematic? So why it's problematic? You can see the reasons. First is the consent is not respected in many cases. So since there is no consent, a state-owned agency such as an NTPC reportedly adopted the policy of disregarding employee consent while implementing FRT to record attendance. This was a case where even the basic to record the local attendance, employee consent was not taken by NTPC. Second, given the poor state of digital literacy, so India there is a concern of digital literacy. So given the poor state of digital literacy, the idea of informed consent is itself doubtful. So the idea of informed consent is itself doubtful. Most people are not even aware of the ramifications of having personal and biometric data recorded, or when their right is violated. So this is the second point where, despite having the consent also, because of lack of literacy, the idea of informed consent is itself doubtful. And then there's ethical concerns also regarding the use of FRT versus even when they are used by uh, law enforcement agencies. Delhi Police, which is directly under the control of Union Home Ministry, used the facial recognition to profile 1,000 rioters. Incidentally, the Delhi High Court has expressed concern in the nature of investigation. So again, aspects of lack of regulation is there. So in the age of increasing spyware attacks and data harvesting, so there is an additional concern of collating personal data falling into the wrong hands, threatening individual as well as national security. So overall, if you see, there's individual security as well as national security also at place if such a technology is misused. So, given the technical nature of the problem, so since it has technical aspects involved, this can only be realized through a collaboration between the policy makers and the experts in the field. So, that's a broad perspective about facial recognition technology. So, even the aspect of consent here, we must focus that consent and digital literacy being low, and also ethical concerns about this must be explored from the ethics paper. So, moving forward, so for a bona fide, see, this issue was about issue of yellow journalism or fake journalists. The Madras High Court recently was ordered for weeding out of fake journalists. It's a well-intentioned move, but it needs further consultation. So, in a direction, the state government is to establish a press council of Tamil Nadu within 3 months. The Madras High Court has come, close to formulating a policy and legislation. So, which is the role of executive. She seeks to address the problems arising out of the dubious activities of fake journalists. So, the court wants, state level press council to weed out fake journalists, regulate the distribution of identity, accreditation cards, and the recognition of media bodies. So, besides receiving and disposing of complaints about the media. So, as of now, the Press Council of India performs the watchdog of and about public complaints, but without any substantive enforcement powers. It does not have any enforcement powers. So, as newspapers, books, and printing press are in concurrent list. So, if you see newspapers, books, and printing press, they are in concurrent list. The state government needs to examine if the field is occupied by central legislation, and whether it can create a watchdog body as suggested by the court encompassing all forms of media. So this is one suggestion to feed out fake journalists or the role of media, negative role of media in society. So moving forward, as we know, there is a line to Kabul. So a line to Kabul. Here, as we know, there's a virtual surrender of the US to Taliban. One sense we can say. So Russia sees this as an opportunity. So there's a vacuum here. Russia sees an opportunity to get into the driver's seat in Asia, and then Russia was open channels of communication with Taliban and shelved its Afghan war humiliation to repair uh, relations with Pakistan. So Beijing, China, on the other hand, and through its proximity to both, China, if you see, has proximity to both Russia as well as Pakistan. It hopes, as well as Afghanistan, it hopes to fill the vacuum left by the US. So again, vacuum power vacuum has to be filled. So we have the Russia, China, Pakistan cooperation on Afghanistan. It could become more apparent in the coming days, especially when we have the SEO summit in Dushanbe coming up. So India has made its first big readjustment. So we have done a major readjustment in the sense that we have adjusted to the emerging reality with a publicly acknowledged engagement with Taliban representatives. So we have held talks with Taliban. UNSC resolution adopted on August 30 of Resolution 1267 under the Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed are designated as terrorist organizations as evidence of inclusion of India's concerns. So this is UNSC resolution adopted on August 30th of a resolution. So this must always keep in mind that the under which this Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed are designated as terrorist agencies. So they have adopted it. This is evidence of India's inclusion of India's concerns. So this is about the perspectives. So moving on to some other issues. So first, if you see impact of plastic pollution on fresh water, uh, fresh freshwater aquatic terrestrial and avian migratory species. So, how plastic pollution can impact the species, especially freshwater aquatic terrestrial and avian. So, this is one dimension which we can see how a human led impact pollution can impact the species. The report is the result of collaboration between the CMS and the UNEP as part of Japan funded Measure 2 project. So, the Measure 2 is a Japan funded project to identify the sources. Um, and pathways of plastic pollution in river systems in Asia. It identifies the impacts of plastic pollution on land and freshwater migratory species under the CMS. So, key highlights of the report, if you see, study noted that there are some 53 million tons of plastic would enter the aqua system annually by 2030, which would eventually increase to 19 million tons. The report highlighted the case of the Ganges and Irrawaddy dolphins, dugong or sea cow, Asian elephants, and various avian species getting adversely impacted. So, major threats which have been highlighted by the report include, because of plastic, what can happen? There can be entanglement in plastic waste, such as fishing nets. There can be ingestion of plastic impacting the food web, space constraints and hindrances for a species living on air-water interface. So plastic can also act as space constraint owing to plastic waste. So there's entanglement as an issue. There's ingestion can enter into the food web. In fact, it has already entered, and space constraint. So, apart from that, migratory birds such as the black faced snowbill and osprey have been observed making nests out of plastic, often resulting in entanglement of their chicks. So, this is about how plastic can have negative impact. Just some static about the Bonn Convention, as you know, 1979 Environmental Treaty of United Nations to promote the cooperation and action for species and habitat conservation. The species of conservation here are listed in Appendix 1 and 2. Appendix 1 are those that are threatened with extinction. Species are those that would benefit from international cooperation for their conservation. So this is about CMS. As you know, this is an important dimension going on. UNSC resolution addresses key concerns on Afghanistan, what India is trying to tell. So the UNSC resolution adopted the UNSC resolution 2593. So 2593 with India as a chair. So India is the chair of this resolution, and it was sponsored by France, UK, and US. So there is conspicuous absence of Russia and China. 13 members voting in favor and none against. So none have voted against, but they have abstained. So concerns raised by China and concerns shared by Russia and China abstain from voting include other groups, especially ISIL and Uyghur East Turkmenistan Islamic Movement were not named specifically in the document. So these were raised by Russia and China but have not been named. The key points about the resolution are Afghan territory. So Afghanistan territory should not be used to threaten or attack any country or to shelter and train terrorists, plan or finance international attacks. This is the core concern that Afghan should not become a breeding ground for terrorism. So this was the counter-cyclical narrative which we saw discussed, that Afghan becomes ruled by government and then it gets into a cycle of breeding ground for terrorism. So this is the basic point. It should not be used to threaten or attack any country. Specifically mentions the individuals designated by UNSC 1267 include Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed. However, the resolution did not condemn the grouping, and then India played an active role in ensuring the passage of resolution that brought international pressure on state actors in Afghanistan and highlighted specifically the role of LAT and JEM. So India began its two-year tenure as so you can observe that there's no mention of Taliban here. That is also one, I think, balancing act. India began its two-year tenure as non-permanent member of UNSC in Jan 2021. So it was India's eighth term and was president from the month of August. So just quick points about UNSC is that it's a permanent member. The veto rights are there. China, France, USA, Russia, and UK. So non-permanent members, they hold a term, two-year term. And then among the non-permanent members, it is Asia, Africa, then Asia. Apart from that, China opens first railroad transport link via Myanmar to Indonesia. So as we know, it's part of the its increasing footprint. So China has opened its first railroad transport via Myanmar to Indian Ocean. So just see the map, it's from Chengdu to Linkang to Yangon. So it's a railroad link. So China is now connected to Singapore via Myanmar. So it will connect to Singapore via Myanmar. It is the easiest way to connect southwest China to the Indian Ocean. So concerns in China direct access to Bay of Bengal is a major threat to India because of the strategic concerns. Andaman and Nicobar Islands come along the way, and China wants to trade with the Southeast Asian countries. Indian Ocean sea lines of communication are important for many Asian countries because it is both an energy and a trade corridor. This sea lines of communication, especially, it's both energy and trade corridor. Along with the current move, China is being seen as part of China's string of pearls policy of to say encircle India. Chinese ships can pass through Bay of Bengal on a large scale. With this, they can easily keep an eye on the Indian islands. So they can also increase the insurgency in the northeast. So the security concerns which have been raised. In a related development, China has sought a fresh hike in military budget to counter. Japan has sought a fresh hike in military budget to counter China since last year Japan has identified China as a main national security threat. So this is direct uh, China and Japan thought for this year. And as we know that because of climate change, sand and dust storms impact over 5 million in India. So this is a report by Asian and Pacific Center for Development of Disaster Information Management. It's a report titled "Sand and Dust Storms Risk Assessment in Asia." And so, as we know that it's an Institute of United Nations Commission, Asia and Pacific. So, sand and dust storms occur frequently in desert and semi-deserts when strong winds detach small particles from dry soils with no vegetative cover. Key findings is that East and Northeast Asia, Southwest Asia, Central Asia, and Pacific are the four main sand and dust storm corridors. Energy loss due to sand and dust storms another amount to 100, there's energy loss happening. Much of the such dust is carried with high salt content, making it toxic to plants, increases salinity. So very high dust deposition at the third pole. So dust deposition had at the third pole we can observe. The positive impact is that they can increase the nutrient content in the areas of deposition, can benefit vegetation to some extent, and then dust particles that carry iron can enrich the parts of the ocean, improving the phytoplankton balance and impacting marine food web. So these are positive things. Some can have positive and negative. So moving on, this is about the nine new Supreme Court judges included in the three women appointment as we're seeing making it a more gender inclusive representation of judiciary. So this will be for the first time that in the history of Supreme Court when nine judges would be taking the oath of office in one go. So this would take the strength to 33 judges, one vacancy now. Women in judiciary, if you see over the last 71 years, so SC has appointed only eight women judges, starting from Fatima Bibi in 1989. So Justice Indira Banerjee, the lone serving woman judge, top court after elevation. So as we see, challenges to women entry is that a major barrier to women's recruitment as district judges are eligible criteria to the entrance exam. So as we have seen here, this is a major barrier to women's recruitment as district judges are eligibility criteria to take entrance exam. Lawyers need to have 7 years of continuous legal practice and maybe the age bracket of 35 to 45. So this is a disadvantage for women as many are married by this age. So this poses a disadvantage. Such differences must be taken into account. Further, the long and inflexible work hours in the law, combined with familial responsibilities, force many women to drop out of the practice, and they fail to meet the requirement of continuous practice. Since we are living in a traditional patriarchal society, so women have additional burden because of the long and inflexible work hours in the law. So, combined with the familial responsibilities, it forced many women to drop out of practice, and they fail to meet the requirements of continuous practice. So, the significance of this gender parity in judiciary is that positive step in its direction of judiciary being perceived as being more transparent, more gender inclusive, representative of people whose lives they affect. Women judges bring those lived experiences of to their judicial actions. This will make a side of more gender sensitization experience that tend towards a more comprehensive and empathetic perspective. So, judiciary with women can bring a more wider empathetic perspective towards judgments. And moving on, if you see, India adds a 4.5 gigawatts of solar capacity in 2021. This is directly related to the energy resources. We can see the infographic where coal still dominates. Apart from that, it's renewable energy which is gaining foothold, gas, lignite, and diesel. So in renewable also, we can see that solar has crossed wind in terms of the cumulative installed power capacity mix. So that has crossed wind by a power large hydro. So in the first half of 2021, India added 4.5 gigawatts of solar capacity against 3.2 in the last year, so implying the pace picked up by the solar sector. Earlier, the share of solar power in India's installed power capacity mix was at 10.3, exceeding that of wind-based for the first time. So we have exceeded wind. Solar has crossed wind. This you must be aware. The government's initiative to promote solar energy. So what are the government's initiative to promote solar energy? One is the National Solar Mission directly under the NAPCC, we know. Then is the solar transfiguration of India's SISTI scheme to promote rooftop solar power projects in India. So, as we know, recently Delhi government also on the government schools they're trying to install rooftop solar. So, SISTI is there, and then we have Surya Mitra program to prepare qualified workforce, preparing the groundwork. Development of solar parks and ultra mega solar power projects are happening on large scale. This is one greenfield project also being taking place. There's grid connected solar rooftop program also. And then apart from that, we have the PM Kusum scheme where it enhances energy security as well as income security for the farmers. And then there's Atal Jyoti Yojana. Apart from that, there are certain renewable purchase obligations for large energy consumer companies so that they buy solar energy. So making creating an obligation in terms of generating demand also. So these are certain government initiatives to promote solar. Apart from that, there are certain international initiatives that we have launched, which is like International Solar Alliance launched by India and France to address energy needs of 121 solar-rich countries, lying fully or partially between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn as prospective members. And then we have One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative, which is proposed by India at ISA Forum. So, this is certain solar energy perspective initiatives taken by India at local level and also at international level. So, must be.